The following conversation is brought to you by the Singapore International Chamber of Commerce as part of the SICC SG60 conversations. In this and subsequent conversations, we will spotlight the companies and business leaders shaping Singapore's growth story and celebrating the business success of our members. Joining me today is Tom Bosberg, Superintendent of Singapore American School. Founded in 1956, the Singapore American School has emerged as one of Asia's premier international schools, blending the best of American educational foundations with Asian perspectives. Tom, thank you for coming on.
Great, thanks for the opportunity.
How has the Singapore American School made it easier for Americans and international workers alike to land in Singapore and to work in Singapore?
Yeah, I think that for so many parents, one of their most important concerns in deciding to come to a place like Singapore, right, as vibrant and as extraordinary opportunities this place has, is how are things going to be for their kids, right? So many folks obviously are coming as a family, and the education for their children is one of their most important concerns and consideration in deciding where they want to live or where they want to move to. So I think above all, by having a school that offers such a high quality education for kids, such a diverse education for kids, it really makes the choice to come here for parents much easier, that they can be much more confident in the kinds of education, the kind of experiences their children are going to have in Singapore, the kind of future future opportunities that they're going to be able to enjoy. So I think first and foremost is that sense of I can go to Singapore and have my kids go to a great school and really have a great education.
Singapore is home to very prestigious American multinational companies. You think about the names like Google, JP Morgan. So naturally, a lot of Americans come here. And when they're looking for a school, they're looking for a school that has world-class American education. How does that manifest in the way SAS approaches its education?
We serve families from over 70 different countries, right? Every classroom you walk into, in a classroom, there are kids from 6, 8, 10, 12 different countries. So the learning opportunities that offers our students are truly extraordinary, right? The opportunities to learn with and learn from students and families who come from so many parts of the world, to build friendships, to build lasting, lifelong experiences, I think is an extraordinarily rich part of the experience for our students. And frankly, it's one of the main reasons we came as a family, that our children were really excited about that opportunity to go to school with, to go to class with, to learn from, to be friends with young people from so many different parts of the world, different ideas and backgrounds and perspectives and experiences. It just gives us unique opportunities, right? We can offer our students learning opportunities that are above and beyond what a school as wonderful as it might be, in a Detroit or a Dallas or another American city. And sometimes it's phrased as an either or, right? You either have to be this or you have to be that. And I think we believe very deeply and very passionately in a both and, right? In an education that is deeply American and deeply international.
How does SAS prepare its students to achieve academic excellence? Because at the end of the day, they're here to do well and to get good grades. How do you guys prepare for that?
But I really think it's important what we establish, that what is our North Star, right? What is our ultimate goal for our kids? And we can express it very directly and very succinctly, which is we want our kids to develop a real deep love and purpose, sense of joy and sense of purpose in their learning. And we start with that sense of joy in their learning, right? We want our kids to grow and develop a love of learning and be lifelong learners, as well as a real sense of purpose, right? We tell our kids, you're not a passenger where someone else is driving your education journey. You need to drive, right? What are you most passionate about? What are you most interested in? What's the educational journey that you want to set for yourself and achieve for yourself in terms of your goals and your hopes and your aspirations? And I'll also say beyond that, yes, we offer an extraordinarily rich academic experience for our kids. I'll give you an example. Our students in our high school have choices among over 50 different college level courses,
Mhm.
right? These are courses that are already at the college level. Our average graduate graduates with having taken over a year and a half of college level courses.
Mhm.
So when they go to college, they're very ready for college. They've been doing it, right? They've been doing it for the last couple of years. They've been studying, succeeding in college level courses. So yes, we want to have, a really rigorous set of courses that offer students very rewarding and challenging academic opportunities. So I think, yes, we care very deeply about our kids' academic experience, but importantly, it's not an end in itself, right? It's part and parcel, above all, of having a strong sense of joy and purpose in learning, and really growing up as a healthy, whole child who loves arts, right? Who loves athletics, who loves academics, and who loves to be with her friends, right? We do think that's a really important part of growing up is that opportunity to form lifelong friendships.
It's clear that the Singapore American School is dedicated and committed to creating that holistic education experience.
Oh.
And through the lessons in the classroom, many of them can not only get a richer academic experience,
Mm.
but also achieve academic excellence.
Mm.
What happens outside of the classroom? What is
Yeah.
that co-curricular learning
Yeah.
experience like?
We have a very rich set of co-curricular activities. First of all, even within your academics, right? There's a rich set of arts and drama and music and physical education, dance, for example. Beginning in elementary school, all of our kids have a very diverse set of co-curricular choices every day after school that they can choose from. Everything from playing soccer to chess club to cooking club to painting to to language, creative arts, robotics, those kinds of opportunities, and that continues through as you go on into our middle school and high school. A big part of our learning is service. We have in our high school 50 different student-run service learning clubs, where students are thinking about how to give of themselves and help others, both in Singapore and internationally. But above all, they're learning experience about themselves, right? About dealing with new challenges, about working collaboratively with friends, about being outside of your comfort zone, and sometimes dealing with a little bit of adversity, learning about new cultures and learning about ideas. And I think those are the times that bring me a lot of joy and make me really proud of our kids. Last year, got to lead a trip to Korea, and we spent a night in a monastery in the mountains down in the southern part of Korea. And we were hosted by a nun who'd been there a number of years. And she gave a talk about how she decided to enter into a monastic order, what her life was like. And it was wonderful to see how many questions our kids had.
Wow.
What's it like? What are you learning? What's your experience been? How do you think of your decision? And I think that's an example of the kinds of learning that we hope to provide our students outside the classroom.
From what I'm hearing so far, it seems that SES is deeply committed to
Yeah.
creating an active citizen out of
Mm.
your students, that they're
Yeah.
actively engaging in the world.
Yeah.
And that's something that's amazing, that should be celebrated. The follow-on question would then be, SES is also a citizen of Singapore in that
Mm.
sense. That
Mm.
in Singapore American School, there is the Singapore at the front.
Yeah.
How has SES become an active citizen in Singapore
Yeah.
over the years?
Yeah. So first of all, we've tried to bring more lessons about the history and culture of Singapore into our learning for our kids. So, right, we want you to learn about our home country. Singapore offers such interesting history and such rich lessons of how do you build a multi-racial, multi-ethnic society? How do you build a society of that's really a society in a country of immigrants, and bring that together as part of a cohesive whole? How do you, as this tiny country without a ton of natural resources, how do you develop a thriving economy? How do you establish yourself as a center of world trade? So one is really trying to learn a lot about our home country, with lots of field trips, a lot of opportunities to go to museums, to go to neighborhoods. We have an urban studies course where we study different neighborhoods in Singapore and what can we learn from those neighborhoods.
Can you tell me more about the neighborhood initiatives that you have? I know you guys open your school up for people to come
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
What is it actually like?
Yeah. So it depends on the circumstance. So, for example, during COVID, we opened our school up for domestic helpers as a place to come to because some of the public areas were not as available. We wanted to do that. Or the new fields we built on weekends, we have local, youth teams play sports on those new fields. We'll have festivals and celebrations where we'll, invite our Woodlands neighbors to come in and celebrate with us.
Yeah, that's wonderful to see SES be so embedded in your
Mm,
community.
mm,
That's something that we think many schools should aspire to as well,
mm.
to find ways to not only serve, but to interact with each other.
Yeah, and there's a lot more that I'd like to do there, right? I'm grateful for the steps we've been able to do. I'm really grateful. Again, we do meet frequently with our Woodlands neighbors. We participate in community activities. Occasionally there are folks who have concerns about things like traffic and things like noise, and we're going through this wonderful build of some extraordinary new campus facilities. And anytime you're having a major construction project, neighbors very understandably have concerns on that. So we participate in those local community meetings to answer questions, to provide, information. I give a lot of credit. Our local member of parliament, Hanny So, is very active, very collaborative, asks lots of questions, and really helps us also find points of connection with our local Woodlands community. So I'm grateful to her for that.
Yeah, I understand that SES is undergoing a huge
We are.
renovation project now.
We are, yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of it's not easy. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of fun. Um, we had the opportunity 30 years ago to move to Woodlands, and I think at that point, some not a few folks raised the question like, "What are you doing?" Right, going out to Woodlands 30 years ago. It's fair to say Woodlands was not exactly the center of Singapore. We had an opportunity because Woodlands was so much less densely populated to have a little bit of a bigger site and to give us a little more flexibility. So we moved in 30 years ago, and as our buildings got to be 30 years old, we faced the question of should we go through a very expensive renovation to modernize buildings that were definitely getting old and were the quality of which were going down a little bit, or do we build anew? And I think it was clear that building anew was a better choice. And so it gave us again this opportunity from a blank slate to dream really big about what we want on our campus and to think, yes, how do we create amazing classrooms that offer a very warm and rich classroom environment? How do we put environmental sustainability first, right? This building will be the absolute highest platinum standard in terms of environmental sustainability. We'll cut our electricity costs by 40%. We'll use 60% less water through some of our water saving and recycling initiatives. Much nicer emphasis on natural light and greenery and connection to nature. And so really inviting community spaces, really inviting play spaces. We're tripling the amount of play spaces
Wow.
that we have. And yes, that's fun. Obviously, it is fun, but it's a big part again of that social and emotional and mental health of our kids. If our kids, we want them to thrive, right? We want them to love coming to school, to have really fun and rich and collaborative play experiences, right? We want our kids to walk into school and that their imagination to really light up, and for us to tap into the power of their imaginations.
When I hear about this grand project that SES is embarking on, I hear a lot of the core values that I think you and many Singaporeans or many members of the community would hold dear to their hearts: sustainability, imagination, community, and fun. And what you've showed us is that it's not mutually exclusive. There are ways, if you allow yourself to imagine, that you can achieve that.
Yeah. And in fact, not easy, right? Not easy to get the balance right and the mix right. And we make lots of mistakes and we try to learn from those mistakes and have lots of opportunities for feedback from our students, from our parents, from our teachers who say to us, hey, this is something I'd like to see us do better in, and how do we learn from that? But I think to your point, it's not just those don't have to be mutually exclusive, but those elements can really be mutually reinforcing.
Mm.
And the sum of those parts can actually be greater than the individual parts themselves.
Sounds like SES is crafting a really enriching experience for both your student, your faculty, and your community. So when many of them eventually maybe say graduate or leave SES, what's the thing that they take away with them?
Our kids come to us with really high aspirations about and we hope we would try and meet the aspirations of our kids. So I think what we above all hope our kids will take away is that sense of joy and purpose and excitement for that next stage in their learning, right? They're really excited to go to their university. So many of our kids have the opportunity to go to universities they really aspire to, and they're really, really excited to go to, that they've dreamed about the opportunity to go to. And that they go to with a real sense of optimism and joy, a sense of confidence that, okay, I'm ready for that set of new challenges and new opportunities that are available to me. For example, academic opportunities. I talked to a kid a couple months ago who's a sophomore at Northwestern, a really strong U.S. university, which is a great economics program. He's an economics major, and so I said, "So, how you feeling? Did you feel you were prepared? How hard is it?" And he said, "I'm not sure I should tell you this, but high school was harder than college, right? I feel really well prepared for college." So we want them to feel prepared and have a sense of joy. I do think we care very, very deeply that when our kids leave SAS, wherever they go to, and the majority will go to the U.S., but many of them will study in other countries. They'll live in different, they'll live in different countries. Again, we have kids who come from over 7 different countries. We want them, wherever they go, to take with them and continue to build for the rest of their lives a real joy in learning from and with people who may not look like them, people of different ideas, who might come from a different country, speak a different language, who have a different perspective, and a recognition of one, the sense of possibility of what you can create when you bring in diverse ideas and perspectives, the sense of friendships, right? The ability that how do you really respect the different cultures of that people come from, and also respect the real rich commonalities that we have as people from whatever country or culture that we're from, and the friendships that we can build, and both the respect of cultural differences, but also the respect of very human similarities that we have. So that's a real deep dream that for the rest of our lives, our kids not just have a confidence and commitment to, but a joy in working across nationality or culture or ideas or perspectives. Heck, it's hard to look at today's world and not feel we need a lot more of that, right? I feel, our world sometimes these days feels like we're sort of going back to, and becoming more divided and building up more differences or more walls. And we want our kids through their whole lives to be bridge builders and building bridges across people and across ideas. And I'll say lastly, but not least, and I say this as a dad of 2 graduates, our kids will take a lot of friendships from SAS, really deep friendships that we really hope and that they'll have with them for the rest of their lives. And with the opportunity, I'll actually be going next week to reunions that we'll have in the United States, in San Francisco, and Washington. This spring, we'll bring hundreds of our alums back on campus for reunion. That's fun. I mean, it's really that sort of sense of our young people who build these friendships. How do we help them continue to maintain these friendships throughout their whole lives, continue to grow in those friendships? So I say that last, but definitely not least, because I think if you ask our kids what's probably the most important thing that they care most about that they took from their experience at SAS, yes, they care about their academics. Yes, they love their co-curriculars, but above all, it's their friends and their friendships.
Talking about building bridges and friendships, you're a trusted partner of the Singapore International Chamber
Yeah.
of Commerce,
Yeah.
one of Singapore's most historical and independent chambers
Yeah.
of commerce. So I have to pose this question: why
Yeah.
does SES partner with SICC?
Yeah, we really appreciate the partnership opportunities that we have with SICC, and they've been very valuable for us as a school. It allows us to explore ideas with a very dynamic group of business leaders, and those ideas could be, for example, around sustainability. As we imagined our new campus, what are some of the cutting edge sustainability ideas? The sustainability forum that the SICC hosted really helped us learn from experts and leaders in sustainability that are outside education, from whom we had a lot to learn from as we enter into this very rapid change with generative AI and large language models. Yes, schools are different than companies, but there's lots of learning to be had. How are healthcare, for example, institutions or other organizations adapting and utilizing AI to generate deeper learning or a better set of opportunities experience? How are they protecting against some of the risks and dangers of generative AI? So there's real learning for us among the different members of SICC.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because as you try to teach your students to be bridge builders and to be good friends,
Yeah.
you're modeling it in real life through your participation and your partnership with an organization like SICC. Then naturally we're at SG60 this year in 2025. We're in SG60.
Yeah.
We take this time to reflect. What could the future look like?
Mhm.
And as you say, reimagine, or to imagine greatly on what the future of SICC and SES could look like.
Mm.
What are some of the collaborations or partnerships in the pipeline, or that you're dreaming of, that you're considering right now?
Yeah, I think again there are opportunities for us to really learn and to be in situations and environments where there's so much for us to learn from that helps us provide better ideas and experiences for our students. And again, those could be individual work opportunities for our students. I'd love in some cases to find opportunities for some of our teachers, like some of our teachers who are teaching in cutting edge technology areas. Those could be everything from, digital media to environmental science, to performing arts, to, computer science, for our teachers to be able to get more exposure to professional leaders in those fields, and both companies and nonprofits that are doing leading work in those fields. And I think that is why so many of us are attracted to Singapore, is it's such a rich and vibrant place with so many learning opportunities. And so for us, it's how do we form the partnerships and form the collaborations, form the relationships that allow us to best engage in those learning experiences, because I think the more we can learn as adults, the better a learning set of environments we can offer our students. And the more opportunities we have for our students to learn outside of the four walls of the school, I think they're richer than the learning experiences for our students are inside the walls of the school.
So as we look forward, it might be useful to kind of also look back and reflect on SES's journey in expanding in Singapore for over the past 60 plus years.
Yeah.
What were some of the lessons that you've learned along the way, or SES has learned along the way?
I think one is, as an organization, any organization, but particularly for school, because as a school, you have such a moral mission at your core, which is how do you help young people develop and grow as caring, thoughtful, honest contributors to the world, right? I think it's really important that you have a clear set of core values. And you start with those core values. Those core values are your North Star. You need to be very clear and forthright and unapologetic, right, about who you are and what you care about. And maybe not everyone shares your values. Okay, it's okay. But these are our values. This is who we are, as a school. If someone says, we don't want you teaching, about international history. Okay? Thank you. I'm sorry. This is core to who we are. This is a core part of who we are as a school. So one is really knowing at core who you are and what your core values are. I think secondly is, well, you have that core that it's so important that you stay true to. You always want to learn. You always want to be in touch with your students, your teachers, your parents of how do we grow? How do we learn? How do we do better? And I think that we want to be adaptable, right? Singapore is a tremendous example of a society that's changing very, very fast. We need to be able to adapt. We need to be able to innovate. We can't, I have incredible gratitude and respect for the educators who built SAS, and they built so much for us then to stand on their shoulders and build going forward. And we shouldn't be the same school we were 30 years ago. There's a lot of learning that's gone on, and we want to be able to continue to grow and learn and innovate and move forward. So I do think that's a second part of it, which is holding true to your core, celebrating, the traditions and history that you have, and being really committed to moving forward and learning new ideas. And because you did something last year, 20 years ago, it doesn't mean you do it next year.
Yep.
Is that still the thing that's going to provide the best experiences for our kids, the best opportunities for our kids? If yes, hallelujah.
Yeah.
If no, then what can we learn
Yep.
and how can we improve and grow?
There is this emphasis on constantly reinventing yourself, staying relevant for the times that I'm seeing emerge as a pattern throughout our conversation. I would have to ask, how does SAS then prepare students for the future in the coming years, in the coming decades? How are you guys practically implementing that?
Sure. And so we talked about this, a little bit. And again, I do think it starts with really wanting our kids to have a love and a joy of learning and a sense of purpose in learning and be really self-motivated, passionate learners in whatever field that they have. And I also think it's making sure that we're continuing to adapt and learn. This coming school year, for the first year, we have a course on artificial intelligence, right? And it's both, what are the technologies? How does all this stuff work? How does a large language model work? How do you train it? What is all the technology behind this? But also, what are questions around ethics, around how you can responsibly use or irresponsibly misuse some of the technology behind generative AI. We've got an additional set of courses coming on, for example, around blockchain and Web 3.0. We try, for example, in our science courses to really incorporate the latest in sciences. We have a great opportunity for our students to develop a set of experiments that they can go on the space lab and outer space and push learning. So we do want to make sure that the kind of learning that we're offering our kids is incorporating the latest understandings, whether that's in social emotional health, whether that's in music and dance, whether that's in computer science. So again, first and foremost, it's that mindset of joy and purpose in learning, and then it's constantly, reinventing our curriculum. So we're constantly, we're bringing in new courses. I talked about having 50 of these college level courses. Some of the new college level courses we've invented and brought on just the last couple of years are, for example, we're bringing on a new course next year that's taught entirely in Chinese for advanced Chinese students on use of Chinese in media, right? How does the language utilize in both traditional and social media?
Yeah.
We have a course on use of computational modeling for scientific applications across scientific disciplines. We have a course on nonfiction and rhetoric. We have a course on a college level course on art and designing art in 3 dimensions. So it's these are courses we didn't have, right? And thinking, okay, well, again, what are some of the courses we can offer our students that are going to best prepare them going forward?
As you increase the course offerings,
Yeah.
you're also looking to bring in world-class educators because
Yeah.
that's such an important element of their education.
Yeah.
What do you look for in the teachers that you hire or the educators that you hire?
We look for very passionate, caring, dedicated professionals
Mm,
who care very deeply about the students they serve, who have a very strong sense of mission, and have a real passion about the profession of teaching. Right, I sort of had the opportunity to work in different roles in my life, both, for example, in government, private sector, public sector, law, business. I think teaching is one of the most sophisticated and complex professions of any profession out there, right? You think each teacher is making in each, period of class dozens and dozens and dozens of individual choices about how they best reach the 20 in our classroom, 22 different learners with different learning styles and different learning levels. And that ability to reach every single one of them requires a very extraordinarily high level of thoughtfulness, of planning, of sophistication, of delivery. So we start by we're very fortunate. When we have openings, we generally get over 60 to 70 different applicants for every opening that we have. Again, a credit to Singapore and what the city of Singapore offers to folks. And we have a very, very rigorous process to go through to pick the best teachers, including references, including video interviews. One thing we do that I'm not aware of any other international school does is sort of our teachers who we see as the most having the strongest qualifications for the role. We ask them to submit a video of themselves teaching.
mm,
Because above all, we really want to know, are you a great teacher? And the best way you can tell that is to watch folks teach. So sometimes folks say, well, everyone's just going to submit a video of their best teaching. So isn't it all the same? It's not, right? And you can really tell some teachers' best is a little different than other teachers' best. And so really trying to bring in great teachers to really try and support and mentor our teachers and help them grow, have a real sense of joy in teaching. We have very strong teams, just a real belief that we see in most sort of very, very knowledge intensive professions. You can never hold all the knowledge as one person. It's so important to tap into the ideas and knowledge of your colleagues. So how do you have really strong teams to help think, okay, we're going to try and teach this algebraic concept. How are we going to teach it? What examples are you going to use? What are the common misunderstandings? How are we going to help students maybe get around those common misunderstandings? If we have students who really get it and they're ready to move on, how do we help them accelerate their learning, right? We don't want every teacher to have to figure that out on their own. Again, how do our teams of teachers come together to plan and enable that to happen?
What are some of the tangible impacts that you've seen on the ground? How has those teachers helped the students become better learners?
Sure, in more ways that I can describe, right? I
Yeah.
think research is incredibly deep that the outside of the home, the most impactful aspect on a young person's learning is their teacher and their teachers. And teachers, obviously, yes, in helping that mindset of joy and purpose, helping encourage them to not just sort of master academic subjects, but really nurture their creativity, their critical thinking, their collaboration, their ability to think more broadly across disciplines and make connections across subjects or ideas to develop their character, right? To challenge them in real life situations. Kids make mistakes. How do you help them learn from their mistakes? How do you help them learn and grow and be kinder and better young people?
Mm.
If there's bullying that takes place in our classes, how do you create the kind of culture where other students say, that's not okay?
Mm.
That's not who we are. Um, and put a stop to it even before, right? It might be raised to a teacher. So those are all the kinds of things of learning that we see in our kids that, we are incredibly grateful to for our teachers for what they do every day.
So far, we have discussed the excellent environment that SES provides for its students, the excellent teachers that you provide for the students. But there's also another interesting aspect of SES, which is that you house the students from K all the way through 12.
Yeah.
What's unique about the experience that SES provides?
Yeah, we actually start with our early learning center. We start with 3-year-olds.
Yeah, it's
So-
pre-K.
Yeah, pre-K. So you can be at SAS for 15 years from age 3 to age 18. I think a few things. So one, it allows us to keep families together, which families appreciate, and they can enjoy some of the same things together. They can come to and from school together. They see each other. If a younger sibling has a music concert or a basketball game, the older sibling can come root them on. Um, the students really have a sense of growth and progression as they see themselves and their classmates and their siblings, go through elementary and then middle and then high school. We have lots of opportunities for our older students to mentor our younger students, which is really fun. And our high school robotics kids come sit in the robotics room with our kids in grade 3 and grade 4 and help them build, robots and collaborate and design in teams. When our high school dance students come choreograph the middle school dance show and work with our middle school dancers. So I think that very human element. I also think it allows us to provide a really aligned educational experience. So we're able to design all the way up what should our mathematics experiences or our acquisition of Chinese language experiences, both in mother tongue and second language, look for students all the way from age 3 to age 18. How do they build upon each other? How do we provide that in a way where, again, we're really able to continue to build and align experiences over time? So I think that's also very helpful. The key values that we have a set of core values as a school of honesty and compassion and fairness and respect and responsibility. Those are true for 5-year-olds. Those are true for 15-year-olds. And I think that's important, right? That sense of constancy of what are our core values and how do we live up to them. That's an important part of a young person's growth.
I'd like to take us in the home stretch now.
Okay.
The follow-on question would be, Tom, you've been a leader in this space for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
Not just in SES, but time before that as well.
Mm.
Do you have advice for aspiring leaders who not only want to make their mark in education, but maybe in the corporate world as well?
Yikes. Try not to make as many mistakes as I have. Maybe would be number one. Probably my top advice would be what we tell our students: follow your passion. Right? You got a long life to live, and do what you're passionate about. I feel lucky. Again, I've worked in different environments and everything from work in the United States federal government to teach in low-income schools in Hong Kong to work in public schools in the United States to work in telecommunications. And I never sort of coming in necessarily dreamed I'd do any of those things, but I had a set of opportunities and was able to follow my passions. I'm very grateful for that. And so I think, again, really don't let someone else tell you what you're passionate about. Don't let someone else tell you what your course is. Find your own passions. And that may take a while. You may not know. The passion you find at 35 may be very different than the passion you thought you might find when you were 25. Great. But when you find that passion, follow it. So I think that would be number one. And then maybe number two is, I think when you're young and you think about a job, you think about the what. What's my job? What's my title? What's the organization? What's the company? What's the industry? And I think as you get older, you realize it ain't really about the what. It's about the who. How do you find opportunities to work with people you really like and you really learn from and you really enjoy spending time with, and who are part of a really healthy and vibrant culture? That'd be my second piece, is don't ever sacrifice the who for the what.
Now I'm going to ask you to put your superintendent hat on.
Okay.
If you were to give advice to the aspiring leaders in education, what would that advice be?
Try your very best to remember yourself as a student and see the world through the eyes you once had as a student, and see the world through the eyes of your students today. And design your school around the vision and hopes and aspirations of your students.
What are your hopes for Singapore and SES in the coming years?
I think to really continue to deepen the partnership that we have, that we feel we have so much to learn from Singapore. And the partnerships we have, the learning experiences that we have, again, provide very, very rich opportunities for our students. How do we continue to deepen those partnerships? I'd love for us to be able to serve more Singaporean students. And I hope we can continue to contribute to Singapore, right? That I hope that we can continue to be a school that encourages really talented people to come make Singapore their home, because they know that we, are a place where their kids can get a great education. And certainly we're not alone in that. Singapore is very fortunate to have many terrific schools, right? Government-run schools, international schools, right? I think it has some of the finest schools and finest public education systems in the world, and we'd like to be able to hopefully continue to make our contribution to that.
With that, thank you, Tom, for coming on.
Great. Thanks very much for the opportunity.